TOA Fit Body Forever and Fit Body Bootcamp communities. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. I am Robert Linkle. We are here today to give you a little preview of what is coming up in next week's webinar, which is going to be on Wednesday. Pop back here. Wednesday, January 15th at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We have a whole collection of letters here that have been sent in from, 10 or 12 different coaches out there. And we are going to do one today to give everybody a little bit of a feel of what we're going to be going through. And if you like this, then you should sign up and register at the link below to join us for that 60-minute deep dive. All right, here we go. This is from Coach Heidi. Heidi has a client who is 78-year-old male. He is severely deconditioned. She put in there that she had worked with him prior to, and now that he's kind of taken a few years off and has come back, she's seen a pretty drastic drop in his ability. Has a kyphotic curve, making his hip hinging position very, very difficult to work with. It's very hard for him to perform a lot of the movements correctly, and she's very nervous about loading. Should I forget about the hinges and the deadlifts and focus more on bridges? Also wants to know at this age, is this the best that we can do for him? And do we just work around these limitations? And should I focus on sit to stands only? So let's see if we can't answer a couple of those questions for her as we dive into this. All right. So the first thing I would suggest is with each workout that you have him in, I wouldn't worry too much about getting a lot of lifts. I would focus on these particular lifts. I think 5 to 6 per workout would be really good. I think having an emphasis on posterior chain would be really, really great for him. We'll talk about the way that you can hinge him in some of the better positions to do so. Bridging will be very, very good for that. But there is an argument to be made for, even though he is kyphotic, he is 78, and at this point in life, it is going to be more valuable for his bone density and his overall muscle mass to be stressed via heavier load, even though he's going to be in what you and I would consider the quote-unquote bad postured position to deadlift or to squat in. And there's some very good research to support this as well, is the over 65, maybe 70-year-old deconditioned individual that has excessive kyphotic curves to them. Just kind of the best way to put this is the potential to correctively exercise them back into a better posture, specifically in their thoracic spine and addressing that kyphotic curve, is really, really minimal, if not non-existent. So when we look at that, we go, basically, that's the posture that you're going to lift with. Let's get the benefits of everything else. If they were 40, 45, even 50, it's still fixable at that point. But this late into things, 78 years old, it doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to address and try to improve. But for us to go like, oh, I don't want to load him because his back isn't in the perfect position, I think you load and you lift and you build that muscle mass and maintain that bone density. And even though it's not perfect, that's how he deadlifts. That's how he picks everything up, no matter what. He can't correct out of it. He can't fix it. So that's how he's lifting. And we may as well be in good condition in that poor posture than in that poor posture with no conditioning, no strength, no stability, no bone density, etc. So I would encourage you to posterior chain emphasis lift of hinges, some variation of a squat every day, and then 2 pulls and or rows, at least just one push, either pressing overhead or pushing horizontal, and then a carry. I'm going to give you some examples on all of those. For the kyphotic curve emphasis specifically, face pulls are some of my favorites, so we're going to jump in and show you a couple of those, and then some retraction shrugs, basically where you don't want to just pull your shoulders up, and you also don't want to just pull them back. You want to pull them up and back. So it's much like like that kind of shrugging posture is actually going to be very valuable for him to perform. And this can be done when performing bicep curls, when doing any kind of high pull action, when doing any kind of face pull action, and even just holding load and doing retraction shrugs. where you're pulling up and back, and getting the levator scapulae, all variation and angles of the trapezius, the rhomboids, even lat as antagonists to help stabilize the scapula the rectors of the spine, and your rhomboids to activate as you're stabilizing the scapula and manipulating it through that range of motion. The levator scapulae and the trap is going to be your primary targeted muscle group that's going to assist in trying to correct out of that kyphotic curve. But again, it's going to be pretty minimal at this point in life, okay? So we'll come back to talk about a couple of these other ones. Let's look at our face pull here first. This is a face pull variation utilizing a flywheel. So this gives you like a 1.5 to 2 second tempo variation in either angle, concentric or eccentric. And the flywheel is, I think, a great piece of equipment. It really works that eccentric return, the constant tension as you're working through here. There's a lot of really good value to be had in this. This can be done with bands or cable pulleys, anything else as well. But the high elbow position, the nice straight wrist, pulling right around the chin, if not all the way up to the forehead. Some will even go over the forehead. I've read and kind of seen all the different research articles on the different positions in which to pull the hands to. And I feel like right around the chin, maybe at eye height, is probably the best as far as targeting these ranges of motion for the shoulder to really give and deliver some good value. In doing that too, when you're using bands, just make sure that band's not going to come loose, end up hitting them in the face. The flywheels, the cable pulleys and such are definitely a lot more sustainable in that fact of knowing like, okay, nothing bad's going to happen here with us as we go. All right, sit to stand, and in some modified variations of these where we would use something called a heavy eccentric. I'll show you that in just a second too. Sit to stands are great. I think one way to kind of skate around this is going to be to elevate his heels. That will give him a little slack in the gastroc and the hamstrings and the glutes, and working all the way up the erectors of the spine. When you put all that on slack a little bit, the vertical posture can be performed a little bit better, and we can place a little more emphasis on his quads, getting him really good at sit to stands. And eventually that quality of lower body strength, as it's improved, is going to carry over into just pure lower body strength. It'll eventually help him become a better hinger. In this case, you want to have that agonist-antagonist relationship. And right now, we can't really target the hamstrings all that well, but because he's so deconditioned and weak in the lower half anyhow, like we got to start somewhere. Let's start with the quads. If I can get him more vertical, that'll keep him from hunching and rounding over. Elevating the heels will definitely do that and allow for that vertical position. So we'll show you that in a moment too. The 3-point row is just kind of a drift component that we have in there. It works a lot of mobility, again, through the subscapularis, the scapula, the rhomboid, the lat, etc. So we'll go through that. And then the kickstand position is a really key one here, using past partially assisted stability training, basically holding onto a stick or a dowel rod or a PVC pipe. And then we'll look into some of the suitcase carry components. So let's start with that one, the suitcase carry. This is dear old dad here performing one of my favorites. These are just transitions back and forth where we have him step straddle, proper pickup of an implement, and then he's going to suitcase carry it across the floor, working on that heel to toe contact and trying to create as long and strong of a gait as he can. He sets it down between his feet, he turns around, he picks it up with the other hand between his feet, shifts it to the outside and transitions back. The more we did this, the better his unloaded gait got, meaning with load in hand, he had to recruit more musculature to help him in his posture being tall and in his ability to walk back and forth. And so that overload with the suitcase weight, if you will, gave him a good overload stimulus to when the weight was removed. He had this practice skill set now that he could do at a lesser intensity, just body weight, but he'd carried over the length and the stability that we had overtrained into him here. So that's a really good option. To pair with that is this drop step lunge. Now, this is the partially assisted stability training I was talking about, using a stick or a PVC pipe. When you hang on or just put your hand on the wall or a squat rack, it takes away all stability. If you don't hold on to anything, you're 100% responsible for your balance. So this is kind of an in-betweener where we can allow some stability via the stick, but I still have to balance the stick. And then the rear foot going up onto a ramp. This is about a 4-inch ramp that's coming up. We can practice drop step, forward step, lateral steps, alternating steps, kickstand positions. All these are really valuable for the client to get better mobility and lower body strength. That, again, when the stimulus is reduced, either the weight or the range of motion or whatever, and they're just back to their body weight, they do really, really well with this. The 3-point row here, with Liz being our demo, notice on the way down, the dumbbell does drift forward a little bit. That's what we want. As it comes down, it drifts forward, maybe even a little further. It could go out beyond her hand on the box hand, allowing for that big stretch of the lat and the rhomboid, and then that up, pull back, retract kind of row position there for us at the top. Okay, a lot of good value to be had with those. All right, our next one, we're going to see the kickstand pickup with the suitcase carry. Now we're just kind of marrying a couple of these together. We kickstand set down, we turn around, we get into our kickstand position again, the staggered stance, right? A little hinge, a little pickup, that suitcase carry. These handles on these sand kettlebells from GoRuck are quite a bit higher than a regular kettlebell. So it can be easier for our clients that don't hinge very well to grab these, as they're probably 4 to 6 inches higher. Again, this is a 26 pound or maybe an 18 pounder. Yeah, 18 pounds that Dad's carrying back and forth there. And he doesn't have to hinge so far down that his back rounds out, but that is a good alternative for us to implement in. Now, onto the sit to stands. This one, Kathleen is doing a 2 parallel split squat here. A 2 parallel sit to stand here, utilizing not only a band as resistance, but also the vest that she has in hand. The depth of this is really of great value for her. She's sitting deep into this, maybe an inch or two sub parallel. The band is overcoming at the top, but at the bottom, it basically goes slack, providing no resistance. As she gets into stronger position, the band will get tighter, really encouraging her lockout to be the emphasis. And then she's got an extra 20 pounds or so in the vest that she's wearing. Now, this will help us quite a bit in not having to, and this can be done, of course, without the band, just wearing the vest. And that's another piece to this that might be extra valuable for your client, is if he's not having to hold weight in his hands, that will then tip him or lean him forward, thus encouraging that kyphotic curve. If you can wear the weight and then perform the sit to stands, the hinges, the kickstands, the split squats, the step ups, etc., it's a way to overload, but without stressing a counter component to it. Meaning, if I'm holding weight up and in front of me or even down and in front of me, it's going to encourage me to, as soon as I get, somewhat exhausted, I'm going to fold forward and start to give to the weight itself. Now, here is Linda performing her loaded vest sit to stand, but notice the heel elevated position. We have her up on one of our little fancier ramps here, which you can use, or just, some 5-pound plates. You could use rolled up towels. There's all kinds of different options you can kind of utilize there. She is all the way up on the ramp. In some cases, we have our toes on the floor and just the heels elevated up on there. But this will give a very vertical posture, giving a lot more emphasis on the quads, specifically vastus medialis, intermedius. We're going to get real strong in the quads here. Now, she is post-knee surgery. Our goal here is to get her quads extra, extra strong and get her really good at performing sit to stands, as this is a pretty big demand for daily life activities. Now, to address the strength, we have is an eccentric focused overload lift, meaning on the way down, we're going to hold that kettlebell at heart height or even down low between the knees. And we're going to work on a slow as we can right before we get to the box or the bench, like really slow, eccentric, 4, 5, 6 seconds, right? Then I take the weight away. And so the client has to then just stand up under their own power. They take the weight back, slow. We're fighting it, lower in the butt. And you just want to work through that center sticking point as slowly, as eccentrically as possible. And the more practice we get with this, the better. As our clients get stronger here, they can either keep the weight in hand the whole time, or they can progress up into heavier weights that we will continue to do reps like this with eccentric heavies. And we'll get better and better even at depth or with load or with tempo, 5, 6, 7 seconds, just suffering, burning through the center. This is how we can get, 3 sets of 10 out of a client. But if they're 5 or 6 second eccentrics when performing that, I mean, this can be extremely daunting, but can get them exceptionally strong really, really quickly. So hopefully this gives you some good ideas on what to do with your client, and we give you some direction of posterior chain emphasis, really working on those postural components, but understanding that you're only going to be able to do so much with a body that is this developed in life. I would say load heavy with your bigger, more compound movements, your sit to stands, your deadlift, or your deadlift variations, but give him the best variations that he can handle that will allow him to experience maximum potential and success. And maybe somewhere around, 3 sets of 8 to 3 sets of 15, somewhere in there on each one of these. So you're addressing, we're working with good load, and we're not over voluming him to where he gets so exhausted that everything starts to ache and get beat up. Because again, not terribly conditioned right now, but that can change relatively quickly because, as you said earlier, he has been in shape prior to, or has been resistance trained in the past. It's much easier to get back into a good condition than it is to establish that for the first time ever. So, all right, team, any comments, questions on this one, you let me know. I hope you enjoyed this. If you got some good value, please click on the link below, and we will be doing this with quite a few more. Again, I've got a whole stack of them here that we're going to go through, and we're just going to turn and burn. I will have as much stuff prepped and set up for you. I wanted to go a little bit longer, a little deeper with this one today to give you some really good value. We'll probably do about 8 to 10 minutes with each of our other mock clients as we go through that. Wednesday, January 15th, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time start, and I look forward to seeing you all then. Comments, questions, let me know. If not, continue to fight your good fight against sarcopenia. We will see you next time. Take care.